I think it's probably safe to say that every one of us is familiar with the he said, she said kind of scenario where you weren't personally a participant or a witness to something that happened, and the two or more people who were there have completely different stories or who have partially different stories. We see it a lot in relationships, when relationships end, and each partner will have a very different view of what happened, what went wrong, what did the other person do, what did they do, and all of these things. And that's actually not even limited to relationships ending. That's what happens when relationships are still ongoing. So we're now in this situation where there's no way to really know what happened because you weren't there, and the people who were there have different views, and obviously there's no other, it's not like people record their lives. It's not like you can watch a video and play back what happened. So what happens here is that now everyone has a different point of reference in how they see and interpret and understand the world around them, and how they see and interpret and understand other people's behaviors, other people's words, other people's actions, body language, all of these things. We all see and interpret the world very differently. So that's one of the factors that contributes to this phenomenon where something can happen, but there's no objective perspective or recollection or a story about what actually took place, because we're not objective creatures. We're very subjective. We don't see things for how they are, and we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are, from our particular sets of worldviews, belief systems, personalities, and things like that. So is it even possible to have two different people tell the same story of an event? Maybe, maybe not. But that's kind of not really the point here. The point is more that we can come to some form of congruency in stories through communication, if people can communicate with each other, share their experiences, share their views. But obviously in that, there would have to be no hidden agendas, no secret desires, no wanting to be right. It's just a simple and honest sharing. And, that's maybe a little bit too much to ask in a lot of cases. We're all on a journey to becoming more honest with ourselves. I'm assuming you are if you're watching this video. So we're even those of us who are really trying to be honest with ourselves may not always be. So that's just how things are. There's nothing right, nothing wrong about it. It's nothing good or bad. It's the particular nature of the challenge we're facing. So having said all of these things, what relevance does that have to our personal lives? Which is exactly what I've been thinking about, because I can't change what happens in someone else's life. I can't change how they interpret what happens in their life. I can't be a judge and jury to determine who was right, who was wrong, who was at fault, who was responsible. If I wasn't there, and if I wasn't intimately aware of every person who was there and how they see the world and who they are and how they've lived and all of these things, then there's no way for me to truly form a complete picture. There is no way to form an objective viewpoint of any situation that relies on human perception. So how do we bring this all back to ourselves? What can we take from this example and from this particular, let's call it, maybe it's not quite a fact of life, but just for the sake of this video, we'll call it for this fact of life, this particular challenge. And I think that one of the key points for me is really delving into and facing the reality of how fickle and changeable and malleable our perceptions and our memories are. And in spite of that, we rely on it so much. We rely on our perception of the world to make sense of how things work, how things fit together, what drives and motivates behavior, how the world functions, how the system functions. But obviously, if our perception is limited by our vocabulary, our understanding of the world, our level of education, not in terms of the school system, but our education of being able to see how things actually do fit together, our level of education of human nature in the mind and all of these things, our opinions, our belief systems, all of these things shape how we see the world. And yet, we rely heavily on our perceptions. We are often willing to risk everything for how we believe things happen, or how we believe things fit together, how we believe things function, or how we believe things should be. Add to that how fickle our memories are. It is well accepted that our memories change over time. So how we remember something that happened 5 years ago today is not going to be the same as how we remember it happening 5 minutes after the event happened. We don't, though, see the changes that happen in our memories. That's kind of like a war of inches. It just changes tiny bit by bit by bit by bit, and you don't even realize that it changes. But if you're someone who's kept a journal, or who has videos of an event from your childhood, or if you talk to other people, if you find points of actual cross-reference for your memories of years ago and look at them now, you'll most likely see some pretty big changes. Add to that emotionally charged memories, meaning that events where we were in a heightened emotional state, or events that we have developed a more heightened emotional state about in the subsequent time following the event, meaning that we've become more opinionated about what happened, or we've become more emotionally charged about what happened because similar events happen to make that emotional state more intense within us. It influences how we remember things. Our opinions about things influence how we remember. Take a memory about a specific person. If your opinion about that person has been changing and becoming more and more and more negative over time, you might look back at a memory of them and see it in a much more negative light and infer much more negative motives behind their behavior than you would have at that time. And, the funny thing is, we still will not question that. We will just automatically always assume that our memories are perfect, that our recollection is perfect, that we remembered things exactly as they happened. But we don't, because we didn't perceive things exactly as they happened. We perceive things exactly according to who we are and our current understanding and relationship to the world around us at that time. And then our memory changes over time. So we have relied heavily on things that are in fact not reliable, that are subject to change quite often, and we don't even realize it. So take a moment. If you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out what the truth is or what actually happened, especially if you weren't there, remind yourself that there may be no objective truth to be found in that particular situation. The best thing to do is for everyone who is involved to start talking to each other as openly and honestly as possible, share their perspectives, and recognize that no one is going to be wrong. Everyone is just going to be sharing their viewpoint, their perception, which is going to be different to everyone else's. The understanding of the event will be different to everyone else's. I think that this is such an important thing to remember in our time with each other on this planet, because so much of our time here is made up of developing relationships, of doing things together, of communicating together, and having that bit of give towards ourselves and towards each other, in recognizing that we are subjective observers and subjective participants in the world, and that everything that we believe to be true may simply be more about our perception and our understanding and our vocabulary and our particular individual unique position in our lives at this moment in time, and that everything changes. And that, you know what, there's no point to fight over who was right and who was wrong, because we're all going to have different places and positions and views, and there's no right or wrong. There's only as open and as honest communication that we can bring to the table at this point in time as possible, and coming to some form of agreement and some form of acknowledgement of each person's experience is going to be different, and it doesn't make anyone wrong or right. What we can do is try to learn from each other and try to deepen our understanding of each other, and learn from ourselves and try to deepen our understanding of ourselves, because other people may see things in our understanding of an event and our perception of an event that we may not have recognized, we may have missed, that, oh, the way that I saw that actually indicates that I have a bias towards that particular point, or that I have a judgment about that person. So in every moment like this, there's an opportunity to learn. And the more we learn about ourselves and the more we learn about each other, the easier it'll be to find common ground, to be able to develop and build things together, to be able to create a better future together. So if you have any particular questions, points you'd like to share, let me know. You can leave a comment or message me directly. Thank you for watching.